Hey, welcome in. Day one of free agency has begun. Well, I should say day one of legal tampering has begun. But we all know that this is really day one of free agency. Deals were coming out within 30 minutes of the opening of day one of legal tampering, which was 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. 12 o'clock Eastern. And the day started off a little bit slow for the Broncos. We had heard of a few procedural moves that the Broncos had gotten done. They had re-signed Jarett Stidham to a new deal. They had brought back DJ Jones, which I would not refer to as a procedural deal. They brought back DJ Jones at $13 million per year. A 3-year, $39 million deal worth $26 million. That was a big deal. And then as the day began, really kind of felt like we were all just sitting here and waiting for something to happen. In NFL terms, we're seeing Adam Schefter send out news just about every 5 seconds of teams that are signing. We had quarterback dominoes falling early in the day. And the day ended with a bang, with the Denver Broncos getting, in my opinion, the best inside linebacker that was in the class. Dre Greenlaw, locked up, is now a member of the Denver Broncos. Before I dive into all that, I do need to take a quick second, and I will make this quick tonight, and I think Safeway will understand because I know all of you guys are eager to get to the free agency news. But I do need to take a quick second here to thank my title sponsor, Safeway. Safeway is an incredible grocery store, first off. Second off, they've got an incredible app that if you don't have, you're missing out. Download the Safeway app today. Do all your ordering on the app. They could save your orders for you. You can add something next week. It takes you total 3 or 4 minutes once you save that order. Safeway's going to handle the rest for you. They got fresh foods. They got local flavors. They got fruit cut in store every single day. And you're going to save a boatload of money in comparison to other delivery apps. So make sure you download that Safeway app today and start saving yourself a boatload of money. Okay, I know that we've all been following free agency all day long, and I invite this to be an interactive podcast tonight. If you guys have any comments, if you have any thoughts on what the Broncos are able to do, what the AFC West was able to do, send in your thoughts. They will pop up live on the screen right here, and I'll interact with you guys for the entirety of the show. And if you have not subscribed to Mount Polumbus Speaks, the podcast, over on YouTube, hit that link in my bio on Twitter right now. Head on over to YouTube, hit subscribe. It'll take you a total of 4.5 seconds, and you'll make sure that you don't miss out on any of my content. Okay. As the day began, the Broncos got a few things knocked out that they needed to get knocked out. The first move that they did, at least that we heard of, was the Broncos brought back Jarett Stidham. So Jarett Stidham is now the backup quarterback for the Denver Broncos again for the 3rd year in a row. Zach Wilson actually just signed with the Miami Dolphins. So if you're curious about Zach Wilson, he signed on a 1-year, $6 million deal that takes him out to the Miami Dolphins. It could be up to $10 million based off of incentives. No real surprise here. Look, Sean Payton has invested in Jarett Stidham. And if you go back a couple seasons ago, Sean Payton actually believed that Jarett Stidham could be a starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. So I'm really not surprised that Sean Payton chose Jarett Stidham at all. It's a 2-year, $12 million deal. And in the big picture, with the landscape of quarterback money that is being tossed out there, it's a really low-risk move. You can get out of it after year one if you need to. And the Broncos have got Jarett Stidham signed up. They don't have to worry about training a new backup quarterback. They don't need to worry about drafting a backup quarterback. Although I do think that the Broncos probably can and probably should draft a QB late because you always want to stash away a quarterback on the practice squad. They've got their quarterback room locked up. There's great chemistry between Jarett Stidham, between Bo Nix. The wives are friends. They're good buddies. No reason to really mess up that quarterback room. They like the development that's going on there. So they re-signed Jarett Stidham. All right, cool. Got that one knocked out of the way, but it felt very procedural in nature. The next move that the Denver Broncos made today was they re-signed DJ Jones. Actually, I think they might have made this move last night, if I remember. Forgive me, I'm losing track of time here. Last night was crazy, by the way. I have never in the history of the NFL seen so many big deals done the night before free agency hits. Most times when guys get this close to free agency, they can taste it, So they want to actually get to free agency where they can get 2 or 3 different suitors involved. They could drive up their asking price and they could just go to the highest dollar that is offered to them. And last night was nuts, man. We saw Josh Allen handed out $250 million in guaranteed money, $250 million guaranteed. You saw a boatload of other huge deals that all unfolded last night, and it was wild to see because these guys obviously got offered money from their current teams that they felt like was going to be similar to free agency money, but it really set up for what felt like was going to be a pretty boring day for the Broncos because a lot of the names in terms of linebackers, Nick Bolton, Zach Bond, these are guys that went off the board really before the Broncos even had a chance to take a swing at them. So you're looking at the big wide receiver contracts that are passed out. You're looking at a couple trades that are getting done. And before the day even had a chance to kick off, I had a boatload of tweets from people that are like, oh, what are you getting excited about with free agency today? And I knew better than that. Yes, there were some big names that were knocked off the board, but there was plenty of deals to be had, and I wasn't really overly worried about it. I'll read you my tweet at the beginning of the day. This was before free agency began. My wish list. I said, everyone is saying that all the free agents are gone. My opinion, this is not true. There are still plenty of capable free agents for the Broncos. Free agents I'm interested in, tight end Evan Ingram. Well, Evan Ingram's in the building for the Broncos. He's been there all day long. They capped off the day with an evening at Shanahan's. Justin, I see you. I'll get to you here in just a second. I'll give you my thoughts on Vaughn here in just a second. Evan Ingram was in the building. That was actually really the first news of the day that we heard from the Broncos. They brought in Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram spent the last 3 years down in Jacksonville. And, hey, man, he's a productive football player. He's coming off an injury, and he's been in the NFL for a while now. So he's getting a little bit older. He's coming off injury, yet the Broncos have had zero production out of their tight ends for the last 2 years, and so the Broncos are very interested in him. Last year, he only had 47 receptions for 365 yards, but he got hurt and missed the majority of the season. Year before that, Evan Ingram, 114 catches, 963 yards. That's a dude. That's a dude that's got versatility. That's a dude you can line up in multiple positions. The year before that with the Jags, he had 766 yards. He had a 654-yard season with the Giants. But Evan is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm not good at math. I got to count with fingers. Evan Ingram is going into year 10. So he was one of the highest paid tight ends in the NFL while he was playing for the Jags. I'll be really curious to see what the going rate is for Evan Ingram. I would love to see the Broncos sign him because I still think he's a very productive football player, but I don't worry so much about injuries with younger guys like Dre Greenlaw, but I do worry about injuries for older guys, especially when they're season-ending injuries, and Evan Ingram's coming off one of those. So I'm totally down with the Broncos signing Evan Ingram. I'm just very fascinated to see what the going rate's going to be. Here's the deal. Evan Ingram was in the building by probably 9 a.m. this morning, maybe even earlier than that. And that's actually unusual in today's free agency. When I was playing in the NFL, we used to take free agency as a process, as a visit, right? Jacksonville flew me down there day one of free agency. I was on a flight at 6 a.m. and we spent that entire day looking at the city, looking at homes, looking at where we could live. Do we like the place? Do we want to live here? Yes, talking numbers. Yes, talking to the coaches, and yes, going out to dinner with the coaches at the end of the day. I got to experience all those things. But it was a much slower process. Nowadays, with legal tampering, guys agree to contracts before they've even seen the facility, before they've even been into town, before they've even seen what the good neighborhoods are. So what Evan Ingram did today is actually kind of backwards of the way current free agency has been going. Evan spent the entire day in the building with the Broncos, and then he capped it off with a dinner at Shanahan's with the coaching staff. Yet there's still no news that has come out from Evan Ingram. That was really the first one that we expected to see major news from because he was in the building. I don't know if that's because the Broncos wanted to put him through medicals, see if they could clear him. I don't know if it's because Evan Ingram wants more money than the Broncos are offering, but as of now, at least, there is no deal in place from Evan Ingram. I think Evan Ingram really is probably more a day 2 or day 3 type of free agency signing anyways. So I wouldn't be surprised if it takes another 24 or 48 hours. I still think the Broncos have got a very good chance of landing him. And if the Broncos do land Evan Ingram, don't think for 1 second that takes the Broncos out of the business of drafting a tight end. Because what the Broncos have now done in free agency, they have set themselves up to be able to go all in on offense in the draft. So we re-signed DJ Jones to a pretty damn healthy deal, quite frankly, paying $13 million for a nose tackle. That's a lot of money. It's a 3-year, $39 million deal worth $26 million guaranteed. Okay, check that one off the list. We got our nose tackle back. We feel pretty damn good about our defensive line. We'll probably draft some depth there, but we don't have a major need there. You went into free agency really with only 2 needs on the defensive side of the ball. You needed to get yourself a starting safety, you needed an upgrade from P.J. Locke, and you needed to get yourself an inside linebacker. Check and check. Broncos accomplished both those things with 2 fantastic football players. Next deal that we heard of from the Broncos today came from, and I hope I don't butcher this name, I apologize, Talanoa Hufanga is safety for the 49ers. He's a young dude, man. He looks and plays like Troy Polamalu. He's got Troy Polamalu hair. It's not quite as long, but he's got those flowing curly locks. He plays, his body mannerisms are very similar to Troy Polamalu. He's only 25 years old, and he's going to be a big upgrade from P.J. Locke. I think this is probably the end of it for P.J. Locke. You might keep him around depending on how the draft shakes loose. P.J. Locke has got a $5.18 million cap hit and a dead cap hit of only like $1 million. So the Broncos could save 4.1 and some change by cutting P.J. Locke. Hufanga is absolutely your starting safety. Now you've got Pat Surtain, you've got Riley Moss, you've got Brandon Jones, and you've got Hufanga, and that's going to equate for one of, if not the best secondaries in the NFL. I'm fired up about this addition. He's a hard-hitting, ball hawk safety. They signed him to a 3-year deal worth up to $45 million with $20 million guaranteed. Jeff Legwold wrote on ESPN, the Broncos get a significant playmaking upgrade alongside Brandon Jones at safety. After Denver went through its self-scouting sessions following the season, it went into free agency hoping to find some additional pop at safety. And at his best, Hufanga is an impactful player all over the field, as he was a first-team All-Pro in 2022 with 97 tackles, 4 interceptions, and 2 sacks. The dude's a baller. He's a baller, and he's only 25 years old. So you got a huge upgrade there. And after that happened, it was like a gigantic waiting game. What's going to happen the rest of the day? What's going to happen? Are the Denver Broncos going to be involved on day one? The crazy part was that the Broncos had a lot of cash to spend, a lot. And they still have cash to spend if they want to. We'll see how aggressive they're going to be. Knowing George Payton, knowing Sean Payton, there's probably always going to be a little bit of headbutting going on philosophy. George Payton is a very conservative dude. He's more of a day 2, day 3 type of free agency GM. And when it comes to the draft, he's all about moving back. He's all about accumulating draft picks. Whereas Sean Payton is like, yeah, give me what I want and give it to me now. When it comes to the free agency, he'll burn cash. When it comes to the draft, he'll fire up. He'll say, screw them draft picks. I want the dude that I want. So there's always going to be some headbutting going on there, and that's probably pretty healthy because one guy can't always get his way all the time. Although if Sean Payton really does want to get his way, he's going to get his way. We saw a lot of stuff unfolding, but none of it was really things that you thought the Broncos could be involved in. Davante Adams went to the Rams. Well, the Broncos were never going to be in on Davante Adams, although that was a fun conversation. It was cute to dream about. The Broncos were never in on Davante Adams. He goes there, and I forget what he signed for, but it wasn't that much money in comparison to what other wide receivers are making right now. And we waited. My biggest concern was going into the draft and having to find a starting linebacker, because before we heard the news about Dre Greenlaw, we found out that Cody Barton signed a 3-year deal with the Tennessee Titans. And I forget what the exact figures were on that, but it was like $6 million per. It was a healthy payday for Cody Barton, but in the big picture, not that much money for what inside linebackers are making right now. I'm actually going to pull it up because this is important for Dre Greenlaw as well. Hold on one second. Inside linebacker salaries. Okay. So we've got dudes in the NFL right now making $20 million per year at inside linebacker. That's what Roquan Smith is making. Fred Warner, who was Dre Greenlaw's running mate out there with the 49ers, making $19 million. Tremaine Edmonds, $18 million. You've got 5 dudes in the NFL right now that are currently making over $15 million playing the inside linebacker position. So we let Cody Barton walk, which I was okay with as long as you got an upgrade there. But it was dangerous to let Cody Barton walk before you got Dre Greenlaw done. Because although I knew the Broncos were in the hunt for Dre Greenlaw, I knew that the 49ers wanted to bring him back, and I knew there were 2 or 3 other teams that really, really wanted him. And if they pursued Dre Greenlaw, they let Cody Barton walk, well, now you're stuck without an inside linebacker. I thought if they pursued Dre Greenlaw, they would try to bring back Cody Barton, but they didn't have that luxury because Cody ended up getting a deal before the Broncos could even make that decision. Well, don't worry about it. Broncos get Dre Greenlaw done. And here's the cool part about it. If you guys have listened to my show at all, PhD over on Altitude 92.5, you've been hearing me harp on Dre Greenlaw from day one. The second the season was over, I identified Dre Greenlaw as the dude that I wanted the Broncos to sign. And I said I wanted Dre Greenlaw above Zach Bond. I wanted Dre Greenlaw above Nick Bolton. And those were the trendy names at the time. Well, Zach Bond was a one-hit wonder. And it was one hell of a season, and I'm not knocking the dude at all. I'm just saying he's only done it for one season. Nick Bolton, I think, is a little bit overrated, and I knew that the Chiefs were never going to let him go anyways. Dre Greenlaw was the dog. Dre Greenlaw was the dude that I identified from day one as my number one target for the Denver Broncos, and I could not be more fired up for him to now be here right where I wanted him to be. Very rarely do you identify a dude and it actually works out where the team actually signs that guy, and I'm probably going to go down with Dre Greenlaw, good, bad, or indifferent, because that's the way it goes. You identify a guy, and then all of a sudden you want to make it work. The only real knock on Dre Greenlaw is that he does have some injury concern. He had a terrible deal where he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. And if I remember right, I think that might have been like in a celebration or something. It was a terrible deal. That was in 2024. And then last year, he's coming off another pretty significant injury. But here's the deal, man. You can't live in fear of injuries in the NFL. Whether the dude's got injuries now or after you sign him, he's going to have injuries then. It's a 100% injury guaranteed sport. And with modern science, we're all going to live to 175 years old. Certainly these young football players are going to be able to recover from injuries. quicker than what they used to. I'm just not overly concerned with it. He's only 27 years old. He's got a lot of ball left in him, and he's just a dog. I mean, you talk to anybody inside that 49ers organization, and I know a lot of people there, they're going to tell you they desperately wanted to retain Dre Greenlaw. They just couldn't do it. The 49ers are in a weird spot right now for the first time probably in Kyle Shanahan's career as a head coach. They are resetting. They're letting everybody go, and everybody's available for trade. They got financial problems, and they're just hitting the hard reset right now. So although they desperately wanted to retain Dre Greenlaw, they just couldn't do it. Banged up in 2024, 120 tackles in 2023, 127 tackles in 2022. Basically every year that he's been healthy, he's had around 100 tackles or more. And the Broncos, for the first time, really since Danny Trevathan and Brandon Marshall, has got a dog at the inside linebacker position. The Broncos have gone 7, 8, 9 years without properly investing in that position. And I do like Alex Singleton, and I even liked Cody Barton. They're both very respectable football players. They've just been playing with respectable players, and they haven't had a dog there for 7, 8, 9 years. They got that now. So what now? Well, on defense, there ain't much left. You need to get some depth at defensive line. You probably need to add another corner. That's easy to do in the draft. And it's all about offense now. Look, free agency isn't over. I do expect the Broncos to try to get the Evan Ingram deal done. I do expect the Broncos to sign a running back probably on day 2 or day 3. But they're probably going to be relatively low free agency signings in the big picture. And now what that sets up for is once you get to the draft, you don't have any holes. That's what free agency is for. And I'm talking about on defense. You still have holes on offense. On defense, you have filled your holes, and that allows you, once you get to the draft, to stick to your draft board to go best player available. The first round's always best player available at a position of need. After that, you can truly go BPA because they're not trying to fill needs. So if you sign Evan Ingram, you'll probably still draft a tight end. If you sign a running back, you'll probably still draft a running back. And now what I've got a sneaking suspicion of what might come in the first round, because it ain't going to come in free agency, watch out for a wide receiver in the first round. They weren't able to upgrade that in free agency. They're probably going to give Courtland Sutton a new deal. That's cool. He deserves it. He deserves a significant pay raise. But you're okay if you sign Evan Ingram at tight end. You want to get better. You want to get younger, but you're okay. Running back, you'll probably get one later if you can. If Ashton Genty's there, you probably fire, but you'll probably wait till rounds 3 through 4 to get a running back. And there's some good ones in rounds 3 and 4 this year. And then in the first round, well, we didn't upgrade a wide receiver. And wide receivers are now the second highest paid players on any football team. So I would expect the Broncos early in the draft, wide receiver, tight end, running back. Big picture, I would say day 1 of free agency couldn't have gone a whole lot better for the Broncos. Yes, it was boring. Yes, we had to wait our turn to hear some news from Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or from Mike Kliss or Jeff Legwold. But that news did come. For me, it couldn't have been any better information getting Dre Greenlaw. Okay, earlier in the show, somebody asked me, and I apologize it took me so long to get to this, but earlier in the show, somebody asked me my thoughts on bringing back Von Miller. Here's my thoughts. And I could not say this with more respect to a guy that is a good personal friend of mine, a dude that I don't have a Super Bowl ring without, a dude that is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I say this with all due respect. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the Broncos to bring back Von Miller. It doesn't. I do think that Von Miller's got some ball left in him. He's still got 6 sacks this year, which if you look at that in comparison to what DeMarcus Ware did in the Super Bowl 50 year, and you feel like D. Ware had such a huge year, I think D. Ware ended up with like 8 sacks that year, give or take, something in that ballpark. So Von Miller in the right situation could still be a productive football player, but the Broncos don't need edge rushers at all. We got Nick Bonito. We got Jonathan Cooper. We like both our starters. You just invested in Jonathan Cooper, and you're about to invest in Nick Bonito. I like our youth in Jonah Ellis. Coming behind one of those two guys. And then I even kind of like a dude in DeAndre Tillman, that are young football players that just don't need Von to get in the way of taking their snaps. So you could sign Von Miller and play him 10 or 15 snaps per game, and some team will probably get a pretty good deal by signing Von at a pretty cheap rate. But for the Broncos, if you sign Von Miller, well, if you give Von 10 or 15 snaps, who are you taking it away from? You taking it away from Jonah Ellis, you taking it away from Tillman, you taking it away from one of your young draft picks. The time has come and gone for Von Miller with the Denver Broncos, in my opinion, and I say that with as much respect as I possibly could, acknowledging I don't have a Super Bowl ring without Von Miller. So it would be a fun storyline, and I know Von would love it. I just don't think the Broncos are the right fit right now because we have so much youth in that room. Okay, I'll probably do another Mount Polumbus Speaks tomorrow night because we're going to have more free agency news hit. I'll probably do another one on Wednesday. As long as there is Broncos news hitting, I will be giving you guys podcasts. Until then, I appreciate you guys watching. I know the majority of you guys are watching on Twitter right now. And again, make sure you go to that link in my bio on Twitter. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe. You don't want to miss out on my content. I put out content that lives uniquely over there. Number one, you want to do that for yourself. And number two, if you enjoy the content, just know you'd be doing me a huge solid because I'm really trying to grow my YouTube audience over there. And if you really want to do me a solid, hit like on YouTube right now on this video, comment on this video, and that does wonders for the algorithm. Again, thank you to Safeway, my title sponsor. Couldn't do this podcast without them, but more importantly, couldn't do it without you guys.